Honored guests, fellow Lopesians, and dear friends, welcome to Rising to the Challenge, Transition Lopez Island's third report to the community on our efforts and progress towards making our island fossil-free by 33. Special thanks to Lopez Community Land Trust for co-sponsoring this event. Before we begin, let us acknowledge that we reside on the ancestral lands and waters of the Lummi Nation, Samis Nation, Stillaguamish tribe, and other Coast Salish tribes who have ancestral ties with the San Juan Islands and who have called this place home since time immemorial. And let us honor inherent Aboriginal and treaty rights that have been passed down from generation to generation. We have an exciting program and hope to receive your input as well to help direct us toward a goal of fossil fuel independence. Fossil Free by 33 is the campaign launched by Transition Lopez Island in November 2019 to bring attention to the gap between where we are and where we need to be to respond to the climate emergency. It is divided into 3 areas of concern: food, agriculture and water, transportation and energy, and plastics and consumerism. Constrained by COVID in November 2020, we held a virtual reporting to the community to which many of you participated. And we're here to tell you what we have accomplished since then. We have worked on supporting community resilience. We've actively engaged with the San Juan County Comprehensive Plan regarding agriculture and climate change. Worked with San Juan County Charter Review Commission on the issue of establishing a county office of climate, sustainability, and resilience. Participated in the vacation rental work group on establishing a cap on vacation rentals. Supported the Sustainable Farm and Fields Bill for successful passage in the state legislature. Was major sponsor of the Lopez Chamber of Commerce Ride the Rock bike tour earlier this spring, providing metal water bottles to participating riders. We continue to work on the current countywide effort to address sustainable tourism. And we're also have been building regional networks. With Transition Fidalgo, we co-founded the Salish Sea Transition Hub, establishing ongoing monthly meetings with 5 other groups around the region to support local efforts and bring about bioregional change. Specifically, each of our teams have been working on different projects. The agriculture and food team is focused on encouraging consumer support for a local food system. And to that end, published Henning Zemsdorf's and Elizabeth Simpson's book, Eating Locally and Seasonally, and distributed 500 copies throughout the 5-county region. Copies are still available. A special thanks to Transition Fidalgo for their support of this publication. We participated in creating an eater's survey published by Washington State University Extension Service, which has contributed valuable data for the San Juan County Food System team. Conducted a virtual local campaign in July, August, and September of 2021 with the goal of inspiring eaters to explore, share, and preserve local food. The energy and transportation team is working to bring an electric public shuttle system to Lopez by exploring the potential use of our new electric school bus as a public shuttle during this busy summer tourist season. It is pursuing future electric vehicle partnerships with Island Rides and common interests with San Juan County Transportation Committee. Is participating in meetings with Representative Alex Ramel on his last mile survey project and state assistance with establishment of a public transportation system in our rural county. And last but not least, The Plastic Action Team's goal is the elimination of plastic use and waste. To that end, it created the Road Steward program to keep our roads free of garbage. 48 individuals have adopted more than 2/3 of the island's major roads, participated in the water bottle filling station project by encouraging more public sites to refillable bottles stations on the island, staffed an informed booth at the Saturday market in 2021, staffed a booth at Ride the Rock, educating the community about Transition Lopez Island and encouraging them to join in. As you will see from the next slide, please. Transition Lopez Island is connected to many other local organizations. And by cooperating with these local partners, Transition Lopez Island extends its influence to address the serious environmental issues facing us today. We're inviting you to join us in rising to the challenge to make Lopez sustainable and fossil-free. I would like to now introduce our speaker. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Proverb 29. We're all here today because we are drawn to a vision of a sustainable rural Lopez, with our individual actions supporting that vision. With us today is someone well practiced in action to support a vision. And it is now my honor and privilege to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Mr. Paul Chiokten Wagner. Chiokten is a member of the Sanish First Nation, a Coast Salish storyteller, and an award-winning Native American flutist. Chiokten has a long history of social activism, putting his many talents and creativity in the service of the protection of the Salish Sea, specifically by ending the era of fossil fuel in our sea and beyond through direct divestment actions. He formed an indigenous organization called the Protectors of the Salish Sea to pursue that aim, and has worked with numerous other organizations to bring pressure to our state legislators to halt all fuel expansion projects and to declare a climate emergency. In speaking with Chiokten, I understood that his actions spring from a deep connection with the ancient ways of teaching of the circle of life and from a deep connection with nature. Chiokten affirms that we're all rich with these ancient teachings. What we need is to re-indigenize ourselves, as he puts it, to awaken the intellect of our deeper being. This land was paradise, Chiokten said, and it can become that again, but we need the indigenous perspective to make it so. We have invited Chiokten to help us discover and nurture that perspective in ourselves, to reconnect to the ancient wisdom within us. Please welcome Chiokten to guide us in that discovery through words and music, and may we be inspired to rise to the challenge of living it through our actions.
OCM, Iska, thank you, Clarissa. Iska, thank you for that, all those words about what you all have been doing there on our islands, and also thank you for the introduction. I'll introduce myself in our language so you can hear a little bit of our language from our Strait Salish people, our Coast Salish people. OCM, Nashtela cha CM. Januate Quinchquilla Quinsatia Quachil CM Nashtela cha Chiokten Sina Snatchalate Sin Uthusanich Athla OCM. Iska ia sin teichol sulcha hela OCM ichel OCM. Quam sali the slikath OCM. Quam the sali the chachaqua. Skalelnach OCM, Achacha Tungulta OCM. I am Chiokten from Husanich and I'm here in our homeland here of our Husanich people. And that's good feelings in my heart today I have. And it's good to see each and every one of you today. Just want to ask the Creator to put a strength on our water, you know, put a strength on the water that lives on Mother Earth, and the water that's in our bodies, and put a strength on the tree people and all the different people out there that are non-human as well as our human people, and our sacred Mother Earth today. So we've been doing some work to turn things around, hey? Yeah, to make things in a good way. And I'm happy you're all out there on our sacred islands of our, Strait Salish and Coast Salish people. Doing the good work. And that's what we need to do. We need to come together as a human family today and become unified. We have words that speak of this unification that we've always held, Natsamat or Hachusida and the Lashutsid. In Natsamat, our word Natsamat, it says one heart, one mind, one prayer, and one house. And that signifies that we've been unified this way. We've been unified as people through an amazing and unsurpassed education system and governance system that was destroyed by the colonial governments of what they call the United States and what they call Canada, by the kidnapping of each and every one of our children for 5 generations. They abused these beautiful ways out of our people. And so a lot of our people are in the same canoe, a little bit in a different way. But a lot of our people are working to re-indigenize ourselves after a very difficult time. And but originally, one of the ways that we co-created Paradise here, and indeed we did on our Coast Salish territories, wherever the water flows from the mountains east to west on what they call Vancouver Island, those mountains, and then the mountains and what they call the Cascades, where the water flows down into those 3 basins and all the way up north to near Alert Bay and archipelagos, Vancouver Island, what they call Vancouver Island, the mainland, and down south to Squaxin Island, Mud Bay. That's the Salish Sea. And so, yeah, you know, our people have always held these ways and understandings that we did co-create Paradise because the world had fallen. The world had fallen a long time ago, and disrespects were paid in the time of the animal people, and humans were brand new. And with that, the world needed help, and the people needed help, because when the water is not well, then your family isn't well. When the circle of life and the trees aren't well, then your children can't be well. And we're directly connected to all of these things. And so our people at that time, the animal people at that time, they longed for a time of peace and a time of wellness and a time of respect once again. And they listened to the stories of the people who held these understandings when all the respects were paid, and they longed for this day of wellness within themselves and around them. And so they went on top of the mountain and called on Creator, and Creator reprimanded these people explaining everything had been placed on the land. All things had been placed, that there was so much wealth on the land of food that there would be no want in the hearts of anyone. And yet they asked for more. But Creator said to go get the bones of your ancestors. That was about all that was left. And he went down to the valleys and brought these bones back. And Creator put markings on these bones and explained that it would be gifting them a sacred game called Slahal, and it would end all disrespect and war. And so Creator began to explain this game and took two of the bones and put markings on them and explained that these markings are the life giver, the sacred feminine, and these are most important in society to guide you into life, into respect once again, and that you will care for these and protect these the most in the sacred game that will end all of the war and disrespect that you brought to the world. And with that, and there were 10 sticks on each side to go back and forth and one to start the game. All the animal people lined up on one side and the humans were left alone on the other side, and humans were brand new in their beginnings of that time. They had not even songs, they had nothing. And so the animal people pointed, they got the kick stick, they had power, they had songs, furs, fangs, and they pointed. And we were not able to protect the most important aspect of society, the life giver, the one that gives life out their body and understands life very intimately more than men. And so they took a stick from us because we were weak, and they took sticks and took sticks. As they sang their songs and displayed their claws and their fangs and all the power that they had, they took sticks from us because we could not protect the sacred feminine, the life giver, the most important aspect of our societies. And we got down to a few sticks and the animal people pointed, that group of humans there, they'll be our food until the end of time, they were proclaiming. And so we lost another stick and we got down to our last stick, our human people did. Our Coast Salish human people, our Huilnuch Telnuch, our indigenous people of these lands. And we called on Creator that last time and proclaimed. We said, only if you help us now. We absolutely promise in a sacred way to hold a sacred promise, to hold a sacred relationship with every single one of your creations. As a matter of fact, every family of every one of your creations will be well until the end of time. We promise this in the most sacred of ways, that we will be their caregivers. We will watch after every one of your creations, only if you help us now. And the Creator understood this sacred promise to hold sacred relationship with every family of every being the Creator ever created, and gifted us songs of nature, songs of the animal people, but songs of other beings. And with these songs, we sang them and we became strong. And now the animal people pointed and we were able to protect the most important aspect of society, the life giver, the female. And so now it was our turn to point, and we took sticks and took sticks from the animal people until the last stick was taken and the salmon dove into the rivers. And the bears went into the forest and the deer people went into the meadow, and we would name every single one of these beings that we understood because we have no word for animal. We would just simply name them as people, not human people, but people of their own. And with that, the story would end, and it has ended for millennia, that each and every one of these people, non-human, in English we would say the animal people, went to where they are today. But we simply cannot end the story that way anymore. It would be a lie, because the animal people are gone. They're gone. 95% annihilation in the Salish Sea. 98% annihilation of the ancient forests in the Salus Sea, 95% annihilation of the natural animal beings in the Salus Sea, and around 95% annihilation to 98% annihilation of our indigenous people, human beings. So we're in the middle of this prophecy, and humanity decides its path. It either continues on a path of disrespect, planting seeds of disrespect until everything falls, or we adopt a simple understanding, a simple promise, a simple sacred promise to all life that we would be their caregiver. We would be there to protect these beings. And in fact, we were there to protect them for millennia here. Most people have never heard this prophecy story. Yet every child had heard this story, and every child was a protector of the circle of life and a keeper of a sacred promise to keep all creation well, as a matter of fact. So I believe that we can rebirth this understanding. It's a very simple understanding. And we can rebirth these indigenous aspects. I believe that everybody who walks on the bones of our ancestors here, because that's what's happening. We walk on the bones of our ancestors here. We've been here so long that everything that you touch, we're said that we're to walk gently on Mother Earth, because we walk on the bones of our ancestors, and we should respect them with the front of our foot, not the heel. That's why we walk gently on Mother Earth, Native people. Even our dances on the front of our foot, you know, and we're to respect our very mother also. So I believe that everybody who walks on the bones of our ancestors should know. They should know some of the ways that we co-created paradise, and the children should be taught. The education systems that we held were paramount to none. They were the best education systems in the world, especially for every person understanding their human responsibility, and for every person to understand their place amongst all other beings. We held the highest level of education for the most important things in life. What is human responsibility? And where is the human being amongst all of the beings? Where's our human place? And so we all knew that, and I believe we need to know that again. We need to understand that again and re-indigenize ourselves. Re-indigenize ourselves and take that root that we have, because each and every person is indigenous from somewhere on Mother Earth, from some point in time before some colonizing power abused that away from your heart, your sacred place, your Hachusira, the intellect of your heart. And it's our job, I believe, to return to have those indigenous eyes, to see this world through indigenous eyes, to experience this world through indigenous heart, and to gather up all the ancient wisdom and knowledge that you can, because that's what indigenousness is, to carry deep aspects of ancient wisdom and knowledge of the circle of life, Mother Earth, and the Creator, and hold that in a sacred place called Hachusira and Luchusid Shqueloquence in our language. Hold that there and become a rich person. I tell people I want everyone to be rich, as our people were the richest people on the planet. We were the richest people on the planet for ancient wisdom and knowledge, and knowing our place amongst all other beings. And as we can see today, we understand, if we do not understand our human responsibility, if we do not understand our place amongst all other beings, we know exactly what can happen in the blink of an eye, because that's what happened here in our Salus Sea. I already explained those numbers, and those are real numbers. We us. Um, that's why we fight to stop these fossil fuel expansions, because they're simply disrespect. They're simply disrespect to our mother and to the bodies of each and every loved one that we love. And every child, we should love every child. We should love their future. We should love it so much we would fight for it, that we'd sacrifice our time, our energy the Creator gave us, that we would stand in front of these things and we would say, no, you will not harm these children's well future. You will not take anything from them anymore. You've robbed enough from them and you will not take any more. We should all be strong enough to do that and take some part of our life, no matter what it is, no matter what aspect of activism, if you want to call it activism. Yes, do something with that medicine the Creator gave you, and stop this colonial insanity of the what we call the United States and what we call Canada and their corporations. They're sewed together so tightly, you cannot define one from the other. You cannot define one from the other. And we need to simply do everything we can to get them to stop and get them to listen to our first peoples, because they've never listened to our first peoples. They never even gave us human value until of late. And now only up till these recent times have we been able to share our voice, been able to share some of the things that allowed us to co-create paradise here after the world had fallen. So we already know how to rebuild this world. We already know exactly every step there needs to be taken, because the world is not all that different right now than it was back then, except for the government, except for the fact that greed, dominance, control, racism, and abuse now is our governor, is the governor of these lands. No longer does a true human spirit govern the people. Because if it did, if a true human spirit was living inside of each and every one of these politicians, if they had the education system that we had for millennia, they would automatically do the right thing for the animal people. They would automatically do the right thing for the future of their own children and ours and our grandchildren. And yet we cannot persuade one of them. We could talk to them until the day we died with all of the ancient wisdom and knowledge, which is science also, and all modern science, on the fact that they're harming their own children, their own grandchildren. And they would not move their hand or their mouth to write that future for them, because they are no longer governed by a true human spirit, educated in a way that would allow them to have teachings resonating so deep it's in their bones, and now they just do the right thing for the circle of life and the children. Instead, they'll do what is right for that spirit that has suppressed their human spirit. Their human spirit's been mashed down to a little black hole. And now greed, dominance, control, and racism and abuse is their governor and their master. As my mom said from her mother, Chakskamat, my mom Sisayata, who was raised in the longhouse, born in the longhouse. Earth's floors, open fire, cedar plank walls, food drying in the rafters. We still live traditionally when my mom was a little girl. And my mom heard a lot of the teachings of the elders, because we were rich back then. We had many elders who were right from the culture directly, not interrupted by colonialism. And now we almost have none. They're almost all gone, almost all gone. And now it's us younger people that have to share what we learned. And so she said these words in translation, and it's so simple, but it says, greedy people have minds of slaves. Greedy people have minds of slaves. And if you ask yourself, where is your indigenous mind? Where is your indigenous mind? Right here. You all can put your hand on your hutch. In Lushootseed, it's hutch. And the word hachusira is the intellect of your heart. That's the intellect of your heart. So basically, I believe what the people were saying is that you could easily become a slave to whatever is your greed, because it will control your indigenous mind, your spirit, which is with your spirit and your whole body. And now it will move all the things that move your mouth, your hand, your action. And I believe that's what we see in the world. And we need to heal that. We need to help each other heal. Of the metaphors of our people, they say, and the most common one I've heard is help one another, love one another, pray for one another, heal one another. That's our very purpose, that we're here to help one another in a healing experience on Mother Earth. So I just wanted people to understand our culture a little bit, and things that maybe they never heard, but are of utmost importance, I believe. So the reason why we never harm the circle of life, one of the reasons, there's so many layers of it, but one is the old people would always say, we have come to this place to heal. We have come to this place to heal, this very place, our sacred Mother Earth. We have come, our very reason for being here on Earth is to have a healing experience. And so we never harmed any aspect that the Creator put here. We only increased the abundance of life here. It's a proven scientific fact that we did nothing but increase the abundance of life around us. And now today we can look at enormous annihilation rates, because a simple concept that we've come to this place to heal doesn't live in the hearts of every child anymore. A simple concept that would allow you to know that we're to increase the aspect of life that the Creator put here and never harm it, never take it away. Because our very reason for coming here is to heal, to let the medicine plants brush against you. That's what our old people said. We've come to this place to heal, let the medicine plants brush against you. And it's obvious we need a lot of healing. You look at what's going on in this world and the amount of harm that they're doing for the children and the circle of life that literally allows us to live. That's not a healed person. That is far from a healed person who would do that. So, yeah, I just want people to know a little bit about our culture so we could think about, have that contrast. If we can take some of this knowledge, ancient wisdom and knowledge, and we can share it and bring it to this world, and do what we can to change the education system that we have today, to do what you can to change the governance system, because we were governed by elders, both male and female elders, and those are the bank of wisdom for the teachings of Mother Earth. Elders are the bank of wisdom for the teachings of Mother Earth in our traditions. Elders are the bank of wisdom for Mother Earth and also the ways of the Creator. And those people govern our societies. Those people give that last voice, and especially matriarchs, especially Indigenous-hearted elder women. In a lot of our societies, that would be the last voice spoken, would be the voice of the life giver, and the one that gives life out their body, and the elder Indigenous-hearted woman would give the last voice inside of a council. And that would often be listened to because they stand for life, they speak for life, They're very intimate with life, so they guide us towards life. As a matter of fact, a very brilliant scientist, David Suzuki, in what they call British Columbia, I refer to it as the illegitimate province of British Columbia, because all of the tribes in which it sits on, that they've stamped it out as this province, most every single tribe never marked a treaty. We never surrendered anything to nobody. And even our tribe that did mark a treaty, we only marked that treaty as a peace treaty, or Husanich, with the Douglas Party, as they were wholesale destroying our ancient forest. We spoke with them and worked to reason to get them to understand they cannot do what they're doing, but they wouldn't stop wholesale destroying our ancient forest, our medicine cabinet, and our general store. So we counseled and decided, yes, we will fight. And we painted our faces black and we fought to the death for our ancient forest. We fought to the death for our ancient forest here. And my elder said, you know why we would do that? Why would we lose our lives for our ancient forest? He said, we understood then and we do now that if they destroy that, they destroy our ability to live as the Creator intends us to live as human beings. They would destroy our ability to live as the way the Creator intends us to live as human beings. And so we fought to the death for that. And I'm proud of our people. It's not a violent act. It's out of love for what's right in this world. Our warriors do things out of love for what is our culture, what is a way of life, what is a future for the children. And in fact, a warrior is somebody who stands for those that cannot stand and is a voice for the voiceless. Did those trees have a voice? No, not the one that those people could hear. And so we would fight for them too. And so David Suzuki, a brilliant scientist, said, until we adopt the governance systems of the first peoples, our first peoples here that he spent so much time with, he said, we'll continue on this path of destruction. Because in the colonial societies and governance systems of what they call US and what they call Canada, there is no direction. There's nobody giving direction to society. It's bureaucratic, this bureau, but that bureau. Nobody's talking to another bureau, and it's a headless monster. It is mostly about taking, and has no direction other than that towards itself. And he says that, our people, because we need to adopt our governance systems, our people have always had a group of people giving our society an absolute direction. And that's the Indigenous hearted women, the life givers, speaking at the very last point, causing a direction for our society towards life and respect only. Life, if it isn't going towards life, in the circle of life, and respect for the circle of life, and respect for our children's future, the answer is no. Our societies have always had direction, and colonial society simply does not. It does not have a direction other than reaping, and there's no more time to reap. Simply no more time to reap for oneself. So I believe that these ancient systems of governance and education need to be considered inside of the colonial education and governance systems. If we could put an Indigenous hearted matriarch at the table of every decision-making point, this world would turn so fast. Our direction they would never allow what's going on. And it might be a painful change, and it would have to be a gradual one, because I think there would probably be a civil war that was as violent as people are, and even here in Canada and the US, But I think it's doable. I think we could, even now, there's more and more, women of color and Indigenous leaders being voted into these representative points. And that's really good. But yeah, so yeah, we occupied the Olympia State Capitol 3 times. First time was 2017 to we set up 4 tarpies in the grass area, in the round where you drive your car around between the halls of justice and the big my relative calls it the concrete cash register, the state capitol. and and so we set up 4 tarpies there to demand that they kick out the fish farms and they think about our orca populations and our salmon and they did. They kicked out the fish farms. So I feel, and they wrote up, there were articles about that to draw up new laws around how we take care of the orcas and things. And then the 2 years later, we walked from Tacoma to Olympia and popped up 4 of these tarpies with 1 person on top right on the lower steps. And we told them we'd return to our village site of Stichas, our Coast Salish people's village site, and that we're there. We will not leave until we get a declaration from this so-called climate hero governor of climate emergency in which we're in. A state of emergency that we're in with our climate as our salmon get cooked in the rivers. Even then, I had witnessed it myself, and now it's common knowledge that our salmon indeed are cooking in these rivers from the low glacier levels, low snowpack levels, and the warming and the shallowing of our rivers and estuaries. And so we did that to kick out the LNG plant in Tacoma too, to stand with the Puyallup, as they have built a 8 million gallon frac gas bomb on Puyallup's tribal land. As a matter of fact, they raided their tribal land, filled it in with toxic slag, and put up a flagged city of Tacoma. It's not even theirs. You look at the map, even people that got up on top of the cranes and towers and locked down, they just let them go as soon as our tribal people came onto the map and said, "This is our territory. You have no right to arrest these people." And he said, "Oh, it looks like your territory to me," and they let him go. And so 3rd year, right in the beginning of COVID, we set up 2 very tall tarpies behind the top columns, the columns and the top steps rather. And again, demanding a climate emergency. And that time we understood more about how Jay Inslee could declare one. He always said, "No, I can't. You're talking to the wrong guy." And we're like, "What?" And he said, "You guys are ill-informed. You should just go home." And so we looked into it, and it turns out he is the only person who can do it through a resolution. And if he's truly a climate hero, he could draft a resolution in 5 minutes and declare a climate emergency for his own child, his own kids, and yet he does nothing. The most radical thing this guy has done is to draft it's a cap and trade bill. It's, scientists know, will do nothing, virtually nothing. It's pinpricking monsters. You'll get nothing out of that. You will not get a future for the children by cap and trade. No way. And so then in that he backstabbed our native tribes, Washington state tribes, by removing all of the protections for sacred sites and consultation. It shouldn't even be consultation. It should be consent rather. That's what they have here in our tribes, demand consent. But because they signed treaties, they won't even do that. And it was all in there until the last minute. And he called a meeting to sign that bill hours before the signing, and didn't inform our tribes so that we wouldn't show up and protest. And one of our ex-president called me and said, "Paul, we got backstabbed." Yeah, and so can you get down there and do something about it? So I did. I got down there and spoke and let him know what he did was completely wrong. Though he just kept talking on the mic, "We're signing a bill here, we're signing a bill, we're trying to sign a bill." He was like a child, and he knew who I was. And he was so disrespectful. But anyway, yeah, I don't know, are we out of time?
I'm afraid we are, but it's
Okay.
been so inspiring. You've really moved our needle really towards a greater understanding of what the larger picture is. And we're so grateful for you. And I know that I speak for everyone in expressing our gratitude, Tjokten.
Yeah,
Hope
thank
to
you.
see you again and hear
Yeah.
more of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all for the good work that you're doing, and keep up the good work. Yeah, just keep coming together and keep inspiring other people to rise up and do the right thing today as
Thank
a
you.
human family. Yeah,
And
with all the colors of our cultures and skins on our languages,
yes,
say
thank
that in a way that would make all those things shine too. Heiska.
you. Thank you. We can
Yeah.
now move on to the next part of our program, the roundtable discussion, where you will have a chance to share your knowledge and questions with the panelists to address your areas of concern. And to help us navigate through the maze of the Zoom world, here's Justin.
Okay, hello. We're doing breakout rooms, right? You had said roundtable discussion. This is breakout rooms. Okay, great. So let
Justin, you muted yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
again, dang it. Okay, sorry about this. Okay, so we are hopping into our breakout sessions. I'm going to open these rooms up for you to be able to jump into. So once I do that, there will be a breakout rooms, more or less button that shows up on your taskbar. I'm opening them up right now. So I see a whole big list of unassigned. So go ahead and hop into those. You should be able to join which ones you're interested in. And like I said, hopefully there's a brief descriptor of kind of what you're looking at and what you want to, or what we're going to be going over in each of these sessions. So go ahead and hop into those. If you're having any trouble getting into them, you can say you need some help in the chat, or use the hand raise feature also. Whatever's good with you. I see half of us have already made it into groups. So just go ahead and I'll give us a couple minutes, read through, and then we can kind of go through what else we need to.
Laura, are you ready to
Yes.
give the report?
Yes.
Yes.
So the big question is, how do we achieve true social equity and access to local food while paying farmers a living wage? And we had a really great full discussion. We talked about the challenges to farmers, just by like the prices that they have to pay even just to get supplies off island. So it's not just like a wage problem, but it is that they have extra expenditures. Lerner had done a really great computation on how much it would cost to pay our local farmers a base wage, something in the $16 an hour range, just to make sure that they had their base amount of money, and then food sales would be on top of that. And he found it to be between $10 and $20 million to be the price tag. Let's see, Ria came up, she said that we really need to name the problem, and it's really about the right to eat. Like, people need to really believe it as a right to eat. And we have so many people going hungry that it's not happening right now. Let's see, it was brought up that food could be a public utility, kind of like electricity, by Caitlin. And Lopez might be a compelling sort of case study to try and reframe how we think about food. Let's see, we need to lobby as a community and as groups coming together with a real plan. And it needs to be a community-wide exploration of solutions. And really, we need to change the way eaters think about food.
Thank you, Flora. Is Electrifying Our Future now part 2 ready to give a report?
Sean?
Yeah, I'm happy to summarize. Yeah, so Jay gave us a breakdown of how we burn fossil fuels for the energy sector, and is number one is ferry, 40%, followed by gasoline in vehicle emissions, and followed by heating. So basically, the strategy would be to electrify transportation and electrify heating in buildings. So Chris from Rain Shadow talked about the goal. Are we talking about meeting the 100% decarbonization goal on an annual basis or on real-time basis? And these have vastly different implications on what kind of renewable energy system we might need. She also spoke to the need to, for some local storage and how to optimize that. Then Kurt Fuller talked about the effort that Lopez Island School District is doing right now, and that is, we're about to get delivered an electric school bus. But due to one missing part, it's been delayed. There were discussions about, whether or not we could actually utilize that school bus for public transportation in the summer when the school is not in session, and it's still not clear. That needs to be explored further. And then Kurt talked of Island Rides, shared a lot about the effort that's trying to basically provide services for people on the island, and currently using EVs. And what we see is that there's a growth in both ridership and volunteers. And the future is that Kurt is trying to improve availability. As there are more volunteers, maybe we can make the service more available to islanders. And then Alex shared some good news on the decarbonization front. Firstly, there's a new building code that has been adopted that will come in place middle of next year, and that basically will require heat pumps in commercial buildings and large apartments, and more to come too on energy efficiency, because this is the first step in trying to electrify our energy consumption. And also on transportation, since ferry is such a big thing, biggest source of carbon emission on the islands, we need to electrify. However, the state currently has plans to acquire 2 new ferries. Sorry, 5. So actually, their first step would be to try to make sure we have enough ferries. We are at 21 ferries when we really need 23. So the first step would be to get 5 new ferries, and they're all going to be hybrid. Cannot do all electric because of the turnaround time, just not enough time to charge, or also the cost of infrastructure of providing charging services is also quite high. But the state will plans to over time convert existing ferries to hybrid ferries too. And Jay also discussed potential ideas too of potentially provide electric ferry services to other locations, not using the main docks that the Washington State Ferry uses. So those are some of the things that we discussed at the energy session.
Thank you. It's good to hear some positive and hopeful possibilities for the future. And how about the Towards Zero Plastic? Is that team ready to give a report? Bob? Joyce?
I'm here. There we
Is
go.
Joyce going to give a report?
I am.
You are. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought Joyce was. Okay.
we went through a whirlwind tour of plastics given to us by Rick Edgarth from the Sierra Club in Whatcom County and Heather Trim, who's with Zero Waste Washington. And starting at the end of it, I was really impressed that they had a new triangle there, recycle with all the R's in there, you know, reuse. And with one of them is called prevent. And I like that. I like that better than just refuse, because somehow we have to prevent the production of plastics. And that was a music to my soul right there. There's been a lot of activity about plastics in the legislature the past couple years and locally here. In fact, the state ordinance called SB 5022 was sort of motivated by the fact that 39 Washington counties had, for example, a reusable bag ordinance before the state had a bag ordinance. So that's one of the reasons why we have to do things locally. Heather discussed the WRAP program, which is a new way to recycle film, the film that's used in packaging, like those bubble wrap stuff. There's a whole lot of, there's some restrictions about that I don't understand, but nevertheless, it's begun. Also, they had a bill about a consumer-owned containers and bringing them to the grocery store, and for use in the bulks section, and also for ready-to-eat foods, which I think means I could bring my bamboo lunch tray, covered lunch tray, and they would have to put it there, stuff on it. When the stores do this, and they have to file what's called a non-contamination plan, and it's not for scoops, it's only for the gravity-fed systems. So we have to talk to, I think locally, the Plastic Action Team is going to talk to the Lopez Village Market in order to get more gravity-filled things.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Also, this includes beverages, bringing your own container. But there's restrictions on that too. For example, how long it takes, about time and temperature. So I don't know if we'll be able to get milk from our own containers yet. The other, one other interesting thing for maybe our food groups who work at the school is to think about what kind of, is our school cafeteria sustainable, using sustainable materials. Also, there's another new project about the litter assessment. And I think one of the things was to regulate trash as a water quality problem. And for all the stuff you see here, things leach into the soil. So plastic trash along Center Road leaks into the aquifer down there and gets us our microplastics, which of course we need a serving of every day. Yikes. I think I'm just running out of speed here.
Right. Well, I think that it was a pretty good recapture of the wealth of information that we've received, and it's all going to be recorded so we can go back to it and hear it again.
And it's a great reason to join the Plastic Action Team of Transition Lopez Island.
Absolutely, to really make a difference, a practical difference. So if we were live, I would now ask for a show of hand to see who's ready to hear our policy roundtable speakers give the answers to our burning questions. On Zoom, I will only ask Andy to moderate the next session. Please welcome Andy.
Hi, everybody. So I just want to introduce our policy roundtable group, which is, of course, Alex Rammel, who's our Washington State representative, one of our Dream Team members. We have Cindy Wolf with us, I believe, by phone from the San Juan County Council. Brian Silverstein, who is an Opalco board member here on Lopez. Faith Vandeput, who is the coordinator of the Agricultural Resources Committee advisory to the council, and Heather Trim, who is the executive director for Zero Waste Washington. So I'm going to start by asking each of you to give a short, no more than 5-minute summary of 2021, of what you believe has happened in your area of expertise, along with anticipated movement on upcoming policies and legislations in our 3 areas of concern, which by now you know are ag and food, energy and transportation, and plastics and consumerism. And after we do this summary, then each of the teams has a question on specific policies relating to their sphere of interest. And at that point, if we have time, we'll open up to a Q&A from the other participants. If you do have any questions, put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them at that stage of the game. Okay, so let's start off with Alex Rammel. Alex, would you give us some idea of what's been happening with you in 2021 and what's coming up?
Can we get rid of the slide there?
No, that's the slide. Alex, are you here with us?
I saw him a minute ago. Maybe he dropped off.
All right, well, let's start off then with Cindy. Cindy, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Okay, well, 2021 was a very busy year for County Council, but I would say probably the most significant thing that happened was we started to ask, as far as what you're interested in, we started to really ask those questions about things like carbon footprint when we were making decisions about capital improvement projects, and making sure that we were, for instance, with our new Beaverton Valley shop, making sure that we were wired to be able to put in solar panels and charging stations for the eventual electrification of the fleet and county equipment. Upcoming, I think the most exciting thing for me has been since February, I have been working with Representative Larson's office and with our county team to educate them about what our climate impacts are here in the county. And the county council has not come forward yet with a planned or a managed retreat program, but we talked about it a few meetings ago. And what we are looking to do is develop a managed retreat program that incorporates holistically our information about what that kind of infrastructure investment means for our nearshore habitats. We know now that really what our place is in our food web is we are feeder fish habitat, and we are a place where juvenile salmon come to grow and to eat. And that means that we need to have our kelp forests in good shape. We need to pay attention to our eelgrass. It also means that our 13 miles of crumbling road infrastructure needs to be handled in a way that's consistent with making sure that those sensitive beach areas are enhanced and respected. And we need to make some decisions about, do we want to keep hard armoring shoreline in order to keep roads? Or do we want to use those infrastructure dollars to move those roads back and help the people who are along those shorelines adapt to this oncoming change? And it's inundation, it's erosion, it's all kinds of things that are brought on by climate change, and also by the knowledge that we really have a linchpin position in making sure our food web doesn't collapse. And we've got to start making these infrastructure decisions based on whether we want to eat in 20 years. I have some good news for you. I brought this with the help of the very capable county team to Representative Larson. And he was interested enough in it to ask me to speak at a town hall with all kinds of different local elected officials, and with Mitch Landrieu, who they call the $1.2 trillion man. He's the man who was appointed by the Biden administration to help spend the infrastructure dollars that were allocated by the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, on a federal level. So really the nitty gritty there is making sure that those federal dollars are put into pots that we can access as a little county, that we're not competing with huge municipalities in order to get our hands on those infrastructure dollars, and also that they don't come to a screeching halt at the state, because we've really got to do something about those beach habitats and our effect, again, on the food web and on our linchpin species right now. So thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go to Brian. It's Brian Silverstein from Opalco.
Good morning, almost good afternoon all. This has been a great conversation today. So I'll just talk a little bit about what Opalco did in the last year and then what we are looking at going forward. So every year, the Washington Department of Commerce does a report on how utilities are doing in reducing carbon. In the 2020 report, our power supplier, Bonneville, was 95.5% carbon free. That's really hard to beat. The remainder is unspecified purchases from other utilities, so that could in fact even be higher than that, but we just don't have the numbers.
Wow.
Our Decatur Community Solar Project provided enough energy for 42 homes for a year in the county. There are 80 new members with solar generators that were added in 2021, so we have now more than 500 member-owned solar projects in the county. And so far this year, we've already added 39 more this year. During the cold spell in December, the Decatur Battery saved members over $100,000 in peak penalties from Bonneville. We did that by charging the batteries at night and then drawing down on the batteries when we reached peak use in the late afternoon. As we all know, our opportunity to further reduce greenhouse gases in our community is to substitute clean electricity for heating and transportation. And what we do at Opalco to help is energy efficiency measures like insulation and so forth, and help people replace baseboard heating with heat pumps. We also hear someone else occasionally.
Bluetooth connected.
And we have two programs to do that: rebates, which have been around for a decade or more, and our on-bill financing program called Switch It Up at 2% interest for up to 10 years. Last year, 147 members received rebates for energy efficiency with an average of $1,000 each, and 69 members took advantage of Switch It Up. So if you have opportunities where in your home or your business, I encourage you to take a look at those programs and see how they can help you. Last year, we also added more opportunities for financing. As Chris Wolf noted, member-owned solar can now be financed. New energy, energy efficiency for new construction, that's new for us, and also for fiber installation. So now I'm going to talk briefly about this year and looking forward. The biggest project we have in front of us is the microgrid called Baylor Hill on San Juan Island. The community solar array in that will be 5 times the size of the Decatur project, and the battery will be twice the size. So far, we've got a grant for $2 million for the microgrid, and another grant, another $1 million to enable low-income members to participate in the community solar project. The problem we're facing now is supply chain and getting bids on our solar projects, but we're working through that. We hope to have information on how to participate in the fall and construction hopefully will start in 2023. And keep in mind, members can participate in community solar no matter what island you live on. I don't live on Decatur, but I have a share of that project. Something we continue to look for is an opportunity for what people call agrivoltaics, where we have both solar panels working alongside agricultural land. And we've had conversations about this before. We need to find the right place. Probably one of the biggest things looking on long-term is our work on preliminary design for tidal power here. The benefit of tidal over other clean renewable resources like solar and wind is it produces every day of the year, and its variation is very predictable. We're working with the national labs and have received grants for the development so far. Lastly, we are working with the Department of Transportation on electrification of ferries, but as noted, timeline is driven by the state, and the current plan has San Juan County in the bucket called long-term. So with that, look forward to questions and comments.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, we'll go to Faith next. What's the state of agriculture in our county?
All right, there we go. Hello, everyone. Okay, so I have the great honor to work with the Agricultural Resource Committee, which is a fantastic volunteer citizen advisory committee who is working really hard to support agriculture and the food system in San Juan County. So I'm just going to go through various things that we've been kind of involved with, or just things that we see as important. I'm going to start on the state level. So I know it's already been referenced here, but the Sustainable Fields and Farms Bill, which is a state level program, is really important, and just continuing to support that program being rolled out and funded. I just wanted to flag that. And then on the county level, so one of the things that the ARC does is provides a kind of, it supports collaboration and the concerted efforts by all of the different kind of organizations that work together in the county to support agriculture. So we really try and have a kind of unified front to identify emerging issues and to try and address them. So there's a lot of different people working together, and the ARC, that's one of the roles that we see for the ARC, is just to create that place for cross-pollination and support of all this kind of multitude of efforts that are going on. So this, over the last couple of years, so one of the exciting things that's happening right now actually is the food system team, of which Caitlin Leck is the coordinator, worked with a small committee over the last couple of years to do a baseline of existing and new data on all these different sectors. We call them land, water, agriculture, fishing and aquaculture, economy and labor, and processing and distribution, and consumption and waste. So this big report is going to be publicly available here this summer. And so I just want you to flag that. It's going to be a really, it's a great document that brings together, just like it's, you know, it's never a complete picture, but as complete as we could get of where we're at right now in San Juan County as far as our food system. And then that is going to be the jumping off place for working on a food system plan, which is going to be happening over the next year. So keep your eyes open for notices about, there's going to be community engagement as we kind of go through this strategic planning process to from looking at where we're at right now, looking forward, what do we need to do to strengthen our food system in San Juan County? So the ARC has also been over the last, well, since 2016, we put in our first comments on the comprehensive plan update, and we continue to be very, very engaged with that. And there's some things that we especially continue to kind of advocate for, which is like in the land use section, we're really pushing for a no net loss of agricultural resource land, and making sure that the criteria used for the agricultural resource land designation really continues to protect these kind of precious agricultural land resources that we have. So that's something that we continue to be very engaged with. We're also in the water section, we've been trying to just emphasize reducing water demand through conservation and efficiency. And so, yeah, so the ARC is just like steadily advocating during the whole comprehensive plan update process, and we will continue to until it's done. Climate change is a big one in so many different ways. And I just want to say thank you to Cindy and County Council for creating the Climate Advisory Committee, which is meeting today over on San Juan, and the ARC, you know, I think it was last year, put out a memo saying we really need a citizen advisory committee for climate change. So it's really gratifying to see that happening. And I went through the ARC's comprehensive plan recommendations that we've put out over the last 5 years. And I came up with 3 pages of recommendations that address climate in either through mitigation, adaptation, regulation, or resilience. And so I just realized like how, you know, it's like the ARC has been engaged with this for a long time, and it's really, it feels really important right now to really kind of name various recommendations and how they intersect with climate and resiliency in the county. And so that's part of what we're doing now as we also switch to really trying to engage with the new Climate Advisory Committee and doing everything that we can to support the county to think about how climate and agriculture, you know, how that intersection happens, and what we can do as a county to support both agriculture and the ways that agriculture can support our both resiliency in the face of climate change and mitigation strategies. So there's a couple things that are really clear on that front is compost production. We need compost production to be happening on all 3 of the main islands on a community scale, and that is both from a climate perspective, the methane reduction, getting all of those materials out of the waste stream, so to reduce methane reduction, reduce methane, and then also from the carbon sequestration effects of compost on soils. So that is a huge one. Another one, as Brian kind of spoke to as well, is just creating a clear framework for agrivoltaics so that so we can balance the dual needs of increased solar and increased agricultural production. So if we put more PV on farmland, we really need to do it in a way that reduces the impact on soils and is designed around the equipment and production methods of that agricultural land. And so we've been thinking a lot about climate change. Another thing we've been thinking a lot about is housing. And so as you know, our affordable housing crisis, how it intersects with with the whole food system, and that many of the jobs in the food system, whether it's agriculture, restaurants, grocery stores, are lower paying jobs. And so the affordable housing and the need for affordable housing totally intersects with agriculture, and having more access to affordable housing supports our local farmers, farm workers, and the whole food system in general. And so one thing that ARC has advocated for, continues to, is for the council to pass the tiny house and tiny house community ordinance that was recommended by the Housing Advisory Committee. It is by no means the solution. It's one little like piece of the puzzle, but just like it's right there. Just get that passed, and so that we have clarity, and and that one little part of the solution can just continue to move forward. We're also with the Makers Guild working on doing a housing needs assessment of farms, restaurants, and grocers. So kind of a food system needs assessment, housing needs assessment, and that we're hoping to get some really clear data that we can use to continue to advocate for housing in San Juan County. So another really big one is land access. And we are so lucky in San Juan County to have the Lopez Community Land Trust, the Land Bank, and the San Juan Preservation Trust, who are working to preserve agricultural lands from development. But we need to continue to do that. And we also really need to preserve the access for farmers to utilize those lands. And so the ARC supported the Land Bank in its creation of its overview objectives and policies for looking at how it holds and stewards and manages the agricultural lands that it holds. Because as you know, there's managing agricultural lands is complex. And so I think anything that we can do to support the Land Bank and the Preservation Trust to manage their agricultural land holdings in a way that provides access to farmers to those lands is really, really important. And so just we need to think in creative ways. And one thing I always kind of put out there with that is we also need to look at like how we do conservation easements, and if there's a way that we can have like a mandatory agricultural use as part of our conservation easement, so that it does more to reduce the real estate value of those agricultural lands and keeps that door open for access to them by farmers in a stronger way than the conservation easements do at this point. So lots of things to think about, and I'll leave it there for now.
Sounds like we have a need for a much longer community conversation about a lot of these issues. Thank you so much for bringing them to our attention. So we have Heather Trim. The last, Alex must have been called away, so he's no longer with us here at this meeting. But Heather, if you could give us a very brief description of what happened in 2021 in the waste area, and then we'll move on to our three main questions that our teams have asked.
Great. So can I share my screen? And I can't do it unless we unshare this slide that's here.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, I will be short. So hi everyone again, Heather Trim with Zero Waste Washington. It's not letting me go from the beginning here. Okay, good. Okay, so in the legislative session that we just concluded, we had 8 zero waste related bills that had a lot of attention. There were probably another 8 or more other zero waste bills. The four at the top did not make it. The four at the bottom made it. And it was music to my ears to hear Faith talk about organics, because HB 1799, if you look at the bottom three bills, HB 1799 is going to incentivize compost and anaerobic digestion in Washington. We must get the organic material, the yard waste and the food waste, out of the landfill. And if San Juan County can take some major action on that, that would be really great. And there is an ordinance that we do need San Juan County to pass. It's required by January 1, related to procuring the compost for county or jurisdictional use. The other bills I'm not going to talk about at the bottom here, methane, I'm happy to tell you more about them, but I do want to focus on the top, and in particular the Renew Recycling Act, because that is the bill that's related to plastics that we are talking about today. So this bill, 5697, was championed by Senator Mona Das in the Senate and Representative Brandy Donahue in the House. And it did not pass, but it actually did very, very well. It got stuck in Ways and Means, but we had a major negotiation, and so we are definitely planning to bring it back next year. What this is it's to modernize our recycling system in Washington, and I talked about it a bit in the plastic session before. It is about the manufacturers paying for the end of life of our recycling system, and also having to meet recycling and reduction targets. So here's the basic big picture about our recycling system in Washington, or in the world. There are four key interventions that you need to do. You need to redesign the products so that you can actually recycle them or reuse them or compost them. We need a lot more consistent public education across the entire system. Here in Washington, we have 320 different service areas where we have waste collection, and many of them have different things they'll take. So you don't know, like if you go from one place to the other, what can even be recycled. And thus it's very hard to do a very strong, solid statewide education program. And we need people to do a better job on that. We are now, because of China National Sword and them closing the door and saying we aren't going to take your waste anymore, we have 2 decades worth of catch up to do on our infrastructure. We need new robots at our recycling facilities. We need robots, optics, sorters. We need a whole lot of technology. We need better trucks. We need a whole bunch of stuff to make the system better. And then finally, we need end markets. If you're going to recycle, you have to have a place to take those commodities and have them be made into new things. So this is basic Econ 101, supply and demand. And what the Renew Act did is, and would do if it passed, is it addresses all 4 of these parts of the system so that we can actually have high quality, in other words, really good commodities like paper, plastic resin, glass, etc., to be able to be made into new products and really have a circular economy. So now let's talk about a little sneak peek for next year. You didn't ask for next year, but I'm giving you next year.
Heather,
you want me to stop
can
on
I
that?
interrupt? I'm sorry. Cindy
I'll stop.
apparently has to get off pretty soon, and we have some questions we would really like her to
Okay,
ask.
let's stop there then. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So sorry to interrupt, but
No worries. No worries.
I just want to move so that we actually can hear from our county council, because apparently our state representative is not available right now. So Justin, if you'll put up the first question for the policy roundtable. Okay, so there's a 27% gap in cost here in San Juan County between locally produced foods and the foods that come from elsewhere. So Cindy, we would really love to know what policy changes that the county is considering to close that gap to make local food affordable. Can you give us some kind of idea?
It is not a policy expertise of mine. I do off the top of my head, the thing that seems to be the issue here is the cost of access to land for agriculture. I am happy to talk to Faith about this, and I'm interested to hear what the ARC and the Agriculture Guild have to say on these issues, and just hooking up people in order to be able to have conversations on a state and federal level too about how access to land gets better and easier. I think, there's been a lot of work on markets and in keeping the food that's grown here, or getting the food that's grown here into the hands of the people who live here. But that price piece of it, that's going to be something that we're going to have to work on as far as cost to farmers, is my guess.
Mhm. Okay, do any of the rest of you have any kind of answer that you'd like to add to this? And then if not, we're going to move on to the next question from Energy and Transportation. So Cindy has a chance to answer that one too.
Well, one of the questions that we raised in the breakout rooms was what role the county and the state can play in redirecting farm subsidies to local agriculture, so that the farmers would be in a position to make a justified income and at the same time produce food that is affordable, not only to everybody in the county. So we're looking forward to exploring that.
And working with the USDA maybe with some of that, the direction of some of that money. Is that what you're thinking?
That's right. I mean, see what role the county could play in promoting us here in the islands and getting a bigger share of that pie, so that we can support local agriculture in a way that compares to the very generous and large-scale subsidies given to the big corporate agribusinesses.
I'll just add that the farm bill next could be passed in 2024. So that's a big, place to be advocating. I think it'd be great if our county and our state, working together, could advocate for increasing the investment through the farm bill into the local food systems. So just always, it's been increasing. So, but just, I think when local governments get involved in lobbying for that, I think that could probably help. Yeah, and then the data that we put together for the local food system economy in San Juan County is going to be available soon. And I think reviewing that and talking with the food system team, me and Faith and Caitlin about those numbers to understand it better would be really good and welcome, and we're available.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I'll just say a lot of what I talked about earlier, like housing and, it's like there's this intersection. It's like housing, production of local inputs. That's where like compost and local biochar production comes in. And so there's a lot of different ways that this can be supported, and it's not one answer. And the other thing, like the getting the priority loading for the mobile slaughter units and the USDA inspector, like getting that straightened out and passed. Like there's just, any way that we can help with distribution and those kinds of things as well.
Okay, thanks everybody. That's really helpful. I'm hoping that the council will consider some of these really critical pieces. Justin, next slide. Okay, so Energy and Transportation would like to know, will the county step up to apply for funding and take responsibility for organizing an electric public transportation system for all the islands?
I think, let's see. I am one person in a council of 3. I cannot answer that question for them. I will say that from my personal perspective, this is it's a big piece of something that needs to be dealt with. It's something that the Climate and Sustainability Committee is chewing over, because it's this kind of a question is something that requires OPALCO, and may also be something that is in large part better addressed through our port system. So The other thing to take into consideration here that I want to put out on the table is that there may be very different solutions for each island as far as what kind of transportation system will work. For San Juan or for Lopez, it might be a lot easier to run a shuttle. You know, if what people are envisioning is a bus. For Orcas, that's kind of impractical because so many people need a door-to-door solution. So we're going to have to get a little more creative about, you know, maybe shuttles to nodes of transportation, and then some kind of, you know, maybe working with Island Rides or somebody in order to make that last few miles to people's homes. So do we know it's a problem? Yes. Do we intend to work on it? Yes. Can I promise any particular solution? I cannot at this point. But it is definitely on the radar, and it is definitely something that we should be engaging all of our different island communities in, as well as the state for transportation dollars. And I'm sorry that Mr. Rommel isn't here to talk about that. The other piece of this idea of an electric transportation system is really looking at the ferries. We are not slated to get any new ferries of any kind for probably a decade. And there is decimal points start to move and jump when you talk about passenger only ferries, as opposed to ferries that are capable of transporting cars. So part of looking at this overall transportation solution is I think it's going to end up being regional. And I think it's going to involve switching to passenger only ferries with transportation, multimodal transportation hubs on all of the islands. We also need to be looking for infrastructure solutions that are micro transportation. So making sure that we have infrastructure that encourages walking and bicycling and those kinds of different low impact forms of transportation. That is something that I can confidently say we not only will apply for grants for, we are applying for grants for those things.
Mhm. So I, you know, certainly this will feed into the whole idea of passenger ferries, and getting tourists to walk on instead of drive on will certainly feed into our current sustainable tourism efforts as well.
Yes.
Brian, did you want to comment on any of this?
Sure, certainly for the electrification, Opalco is here ready to work. I think our role will be in charging stations. That's an area that we clearly need more. And for some of these activities, we need fast chargers, so people don't have to wait several hours to get their vehicles recharged, or the bus or whatever. And we certainly are very interested in working with the county and other organizations to make this happen. One of the things we're looking at, we're actually pushing the envelope here on the chargers. The question is, who's going to pay for the electricity? So one thing is to build the charging system. The other is who pays for the energy. And something that we've been working for a couple of years now with the vendor that does our billing is to set up a system where a Opalco member can put in a card that says, I'm an Opalco member, just put it onto my bill. I think people would really like that, but it could be in other locations. And then for people who are visitors, they could use a credit card, and that would just pass through the cost. And for organizations, whether it's school or government, we'll figure out a way to deal with that.
But we could also, for instance, require any place that hosts visitors to have charging stations available.
I like that.
I would like to add that I attended almost all the meetings considering sustainable tourism in the islands. And one of the suggestions made there was to invite Uber and Lyft to the islands to provide last mile transportation. And I suggested that that would work, but only if those cars brought by Uber and Lyft were electrified. And I wonder whether the county could get involved in organizing an effort where fleets of cars would be available, but they would have to be electric in order to get tourists, who come here out of their combustion engine cars and bring them to the island, walking onto the ferries and then being transported in place by available fleets.
Let's not do Uber and Lyft. I think we could start an electric car cooperative.
Well, that's fine. That's great. In other words, provide the transportation on the ground so that there's either a public transportation system in the form of a bus or of shuttles, but there could also be individual cars that could be engaged by travelers, but they should be electric.
And we also have our Island Rides program as well. It's still functioning very well.
Yeah,
and there is I will be honest with you, there is a question in my mind whether the county's proper role is to build a gigantic infrastructure around becoming a rental car company. So I think, there are still things in this world that are definitely better addressed by private enterprise.
Absolutely, but the county can play a role in shaping the future.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. As far as charging stations, as far as, figuring out where are you going to put those fleets. Those are things that are properly in the realm of the county, as far as I'm concerned. But the running a car enterprise, I don't know about that.
Could I add, Cindy, that San Juan County is the only one in Washington without a public transportation district?
I would be surprised about that. I think there's a number of small Eastern Washington counties with populations that are similar to ours that are actually banded together in regional transportation districts.
That's right, but they have a district.
Right.
We don't.
Good point. Thank you, Kurt. All right, moving to our last slide on this policy roundtable, and we'll this is obviously addressed to Heather, but anybody else on the roundtable who would like to speak to it. Are the goals of SB 5022 with respect to various types of plastic, especially styrofoam and film, being fulfilled? And if not, are other laws being proposed to implement and strengthen SB 5022?
So I will be very brief because we're over time, and we had a great discussion and I'd be very happy, by the way, Clarissa, to come back and have a session just with the plastics team and talk about a local ordinance. Because I think really, I'll answer the big question in a minute, but I think really San Juan County, or if you want to do something local, even more local, could really help move the bar for the state if you all could do something local. I guess I'm speaking to you, Cindy, too. Let's get together and do that as a more robust discussion later. Right now, so 5022 is the big bill that passed last year in 2021, and it will ban styrofoam food containers, peanuts, and coolers over the next 2 years. So it's hard to say that it's being fulfilled because it's actually not kicking in for over the next 2 years. The first thing that did kick in already is the opt-in. So if you find a restaurant right now, or DoorDash, any of those third-party delivery, or your school cafeterias, or any of those places that have food, a farmer's market, they cannot provide single-use utensils, cup lids, cold cup lids, condiment packs, and straws unless the consumer wants it. They can put it out in a bin and people can grab what they want. We're not saying don't get them. It's just don't have a fork full of a drawer in your home full of a bunch of plastic forks like what I have. Don't get it unless you need it. And so I would say that 5022 is underway and is being heavily implemented by Ecology in a good way. The big question right now is just getting the word out to the restaurants about that opt-in piece. And then, as I was mentioning before, the Renew Act is to modernize the recycling system in Washington to bring access to all the corners of our state, including your corner. And we need to get that bill passed this coming session. So happy to talk more about that later, but I think we're kind of out of time.
And I would say for county, yeah, sorry. I would say for county, commercial composting, just making sure that that is in place on all of the major islands, because that's going to be a big piece of, if you're going to ask people, if you're going to ask businesses to do compostable plastics, then you need to have a way to compost them.
That's right. Although Bainbridge Island did say compostable, backyard compostable only on their to-go-ware. So you could go that route. But we very, very much support what Faith is saying. We really need you all there to do composting or anaerobic digestion and food donation. There's a lot of food that is not getting into people's mouths that is going to the landfill, and that is a crime. So all those pieces, we got to not let the organic material go to the landfill anymore. That's big for you all to take leadership on as well.
Okay, anybody else have any other comments about this particular?
As a retailer, it'd be really helpful for once we want to collect the compostables, the county maybe, or working with the exchange provided some bins, but to provide the businesses with receptacles so that everybody has the same receptacles, and research what would be ideal for that. Yeah, so it's really helpful. I think there's little barriers like that could be helpful to just assist businesses to implement it once it's ready to be implemented.
Thanks, Lerner. Okay. Well, I thank everybody who participated in our policy roundtable, and I hope we will have many more discussions like this. They're very, very valuable, and thanks for everyone putting in their time. I'll turn this back over to Clarissa.
Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. It's been exciting for me, and I was inspired by Chiokten, and I'm sure many of us were, who shared a wider, all-embracing perspective. And I'm really grateful for the specialists and the state and local legislators to inform us so completely and thoroughly. And I'm grateful also to have shared ideas with the community about specific issues and the plans of actions for moving forward on our vision. So I might ask, what's next? What should we do? How should we move forward? And I say, let's go have pizza. On June the 4th, Henning and Elizabeth will host an event at SNS Homestead Farm, learning to eat locally and seasonally. Stay tuned for a way to participate. The Plastic Action Team will kick off Plastic Free July on July 4th. Stay tuned on that too. We're planning more ideas that have come up from today's meeting, and you'll hear all about them. The Energy and Transportation Team will host an electric vehicle jamboree with Opalco in August or September. Please get involved. Join one of our teams, follow your passion, and rise to the challenge with Transition Lopez Island. Thank you very much for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. Well done.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you. Great session. Thank you.
Good job, Clarissa.
Yeah, thanks, Clarissa.
Thanks, everybody.
And Andy and everybody.
Yeah, good job, Andy.
Okay.